The courthouse was never quiet at dawn. Not truly, but there were moments when the long marble hallways carried only the hum of the vents and the soft rhythm of a mop moving across polished stone. That was the hour Micah Hale preferred, 5 in the morning, long before the attorneys arrived in their crisp suits and their expensive arguments, long before spectators filled the benches. This time of day belonged to the forgotten people who kept the building breathing. Micah was one of them. A faded navy uniform hung loosely on his frame, the embroidered patch over his chest reading Custodial Services. His hair, once a deep chestnut, had silvered at the edges, and his hands bore the quiet aches of years spent scrubbing floors. Yet despite his posture, despite the mop handle he leaned on, there lingered something in his eyes that didn't match the rest of him, something sharper than people expected from a janitor, something watchful. He paused inside courtroom 4B, staring at the tall windows as they caught the first hint of sunrise. Dusty gold light spilled across the gallery seats, making the room look almost holy. It was a strange contrast to the battles that happened here, arguments dressed as logic, power disguised as justice. Micah had once stood in this same room wearing not a uniform, but a tailored suit. He once had a voice that commanded attention, until life had folded him, crushed him, and set him down into the shadows where no one bothered to look twice. He shook the memories off. The past had learned how to bite, and he had learned not to touch it. At precisely 9 a.m., the courtroom transformed. Reporters slid into the benches. Camera shutters clicked like insects. Attorneys whispered in rehearsed confidence. But all eyes eventually moved toward the defense table, where Arden Whitlow sat, alone. Arden Whitlow, the woman on every magazine cover for her breakthrough tech empire, a billionaire known for her brilliance and reserved demeanor. Her presence usually commanded a room, but today she looked like someone standing at the edge of a cliff. Her hands stayed clasped tightly in her lap. Her lips were bloodless, her gaze fixed on the floor rather than the swarm of journalists recording every twitch she made. Her legal team, an elite group from one of the most prestigious firms in Manhattan, had not shown up. 6 chairs sat vacant, as if waiting for ghosts. Micah had seen many trials as he cleaned around them, but he had never seen a defendant abandoned moments before the judge entered. The clock hit 9:15. Judge Miriam Lowell stepped through the door, her presence quiet but piercing. She scanned the defense table, her brows drawing together. "Miss Whitlow," she said, "where are your attorneys?" Arden rose. Her voice, though soft, trembled. "Your Honor, I don't know. They confirmed attendance yesterday. I've called repeatedly this morning and received no response." Prosecutor Lana Reeves stood like a blade waiting to strike. "Your Honor, the defense has effectively been deserted. We move for immediate default judgment. There was no legal representation to proceed." A wave of murmurs rushed through the room. Reporters typed faster. Judge Lowell exhaled heavily. "Miss Whitlow, without counsel, I cannot. I'll represent her." The words didn't so much echo as crack across the room like someone had shattered glass. Heads turned, cameras pivoted. Micah Hale stood halfway down the aisle, with his cleaning cart beside him, one hand still wrapped around the mop handle. His heart thundered so loudly he swore the gallery could hear it, but he didn't step back. Something hot and determined surged in him, something he hadn't felt in years. Judge Lowell blinked. "Sir, who are you?" Micah walked forward, leaving the mop behind. Even after 15 years of physical labor, his stride carried a forgotten confidence. He said, "My name is Micah Hale, and I would like to act as defense counsel for Miss Whitlow." Laughter, soft, disbelieving, cruel, fluttered through the rows, but Micah didn't flinch. Prosecutor Reeves gave a slow smirk. A custodian representing a billion-dollar tech founder in federal court? Micah removed a worn leather wallet from his pocket and produced an ID card so old the edges were frayed. former member of the New York Bar Association. License still valid, he said. A stillness settled over the room. Judge Lowell took the card. Her brows rose a fraction. Mr. Hale, how long has it been since you practiced law? 15 years, he answered. No apologies, no excuses. And you believe you can competently represent Miss Whitlow in a case of this magnitude? Micah's jaw tightened. I believe she deserves to be defended, and I know the law, Your Honor. That hasn't changed. Arden finally looked at him, really looked at him, and what Micah saw in her eyes was not certainty, but hope struggling to ignite. He had watched her from afar for weeks as he quietly cleaned the courtroom during hearings, and in this moment she seemed to see him for the first time. Judge Lowell tapped her pen against the bench as if weighing not the law but the humanity of the moment. Finally, she said, Miss Whitlow, do you accept Mr. Hale as your counsel? Arden swallowed. Yes, Your Honor, I do. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Very well, Judge Lowell said. You have 15 minutes to confer. Then we proceed. Micah's pulse thundered. 15 minutes to prepare a defense that teams of attorneys had taken months to construct. 15 minutes to step fully back into a world that once crushed him. He walked toward the defense table, aware of every eye burning into him. Arden leaned closer, speaking under her breath. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. Micah met her gaze. Because someone wants you alone. Someone wants this trial to end before it begins. And I won't let that happen. Arden stared at him as if weighing his soul. Micah inhaled deeply. Start from the beginning. Tell me everything. And as she spoke, her voice filled with fear, confusion, and buried truth, Micah felt the old version of himself rising up again, piece by piece. The lawyer he once was, the one they tried to break. 15 minutes. That was all he had. But for the first time in years, Micah Hale felt alive. What secret buried in Arden's story will make Micah realize her lawyers didn't abandon her? They were forced to.
15 minutes. That was all the court granted Micah to rebuild a legal defense that an elite team had spent months preparing, before vanishing without a trace. Arden Whitlow leaned across the defense table, her posture fighting between panic and composure. Micah could see the tremor in her hands, the tight pull in her jaw, the exhaustion she tried desperately to conceal from the cameras. Start from the beginning, Micah said quietly. The real beginning, not the version your PR team approved. Arden exhaled shakily. You're asking me for the one version I've been too afraid to say out loud. Micah nodded. Then it's probably the one that matters. She hesitated, eyes darting toward the reporters who were whispering, recording, devouring every second of the spectacle. Micah leaned a little closer. From now on, he said softly, you're not alone at that table. Arden's gaze steadied just barely, but enough to signal she was ready. Arden's truth. It started 12 years ago, Arden began. Long before Whitlow Dynamics became a multi-billion-dollar research empire. I was fresh out of MIT. Alone, broke, living on takeout noodles, and a dream I couldn't convince anyone else to believe in. Micah listened closely. He wasn't just hearing her words. He studied her pauses, her shifts in tone, the parts she swallowed before saying aloud. Years of cross-examining witnesses had carved that instinct deep into him. She continued, my research revolved around quantum resonance stabilization. Everyone said my theories were impossible, that the technology would require a facility the size of a city block and temperatures colder than deep space. She gave a small, humorless laugh. What I created instead fit on a desk. The prototype, Micah guessed? Arden nodded. A processor that doesn't rely on extreme cooling, stable at room temperature, cheap, scalable. Micah blinked. That wasn't just impressive, it was catastrophic. For industries built on outdated technology, her invention was a guillotine disguised as a miracle. That's why you're being sued, Micah murmured. Because you built something the wrong people want to erase. Arden's breath stuttered. Nexus Innovations claims I stole their research, but I didn't. I've never seen their work. My notes go back years before they were even founded. She tapped the folder in front of her. My last lawyers told me we shouldn't submit those notes, that the court would, quote, question their legitimacy. Micah's face tightened. Those notes are your strongest proof. I know that now, she whispered. But I trusted them. They told me letting the prosecution move first would expose weaknesses. Instead, everything collapsed. Micah frowned. When did they start behaving strangely? About 3 months ago. Her voice lowered further. They started avoiding me, meetings got delayed, files went missing, draft motions were wrong, sloppy, out of character. Micah's stomach sank. They weren't incompetent, Arden, they were compromised. A tremor flickered across her face, but she forced herself to keep talking. There's more, she admitted. My assistant Julia acted strange the last few months. She claimed she was preparing backups, but later I found out she copied sensitive files to a USB drive. I confronted her. She swore it was routine. I believed her. Arden's voice cracked. I wanted to believe her. Micah's pulse sharpened. And your lawyers never confronted her about it? They brushed it off, Arden replied. Said internal copies were standard practice. Micah, her eyes searched his. Does that sound standard to you? Micah didn't answer. He didn't need to. Arden closed her eyes for a moment, trying to hold herself together. I don't know who to trust anymore. People I paid millions abandoned me without warning. Cameras stalked my every move. My company's stock tanked, investors jumped ship, and now here I am, sitting with a... She stopped, horrified at her own words. Micah didn't flinch. A janitor, he finished with a small nod. It's all right. You're under pressure. No, Arden whispered, her voice raw. I didn't mean it that way. I meant you're the only one who stood up for me when everyone else vanished. Micah felt the truth in it. Heavy, sincere. He leaned forward, lowering his voice even further. Arden, what you're facing isn't a lawsuit. It's a coordinated attack. Someone wants you isolated, discredited, and defenseless. Your research threatens powerful players. They will not stop at legal maneuverings. Her fingers curled tightly around the edge of the table. So what do I do? Micah met her gaze steadily. You tell me everything, and you let me fight the way they never expected. The clock hit 0. The clerk's voice broke through the tension. The 15-minute conference has ended. Please return to your seats. Micah rose. Arden did the same, steadying herself with a slow inhale. Lana Reeves approached the podium with measured confidence, smirking as if the game was already won. Is the defense ready, Mr. Hale, or do you need an extra mop bucket? A ripple of laughter fluttered through the gallery. Micah didn't react. Ready, Your Honor. Judge Lowell nodded. Proceed with your opening. Micah stepped to the lectern. The wood was cool beneath his hands, grounding him. For 15 years, he had avoided this exact feeling, the heat of a courtroom, the weight of eyes judging his worth, the ghosts of the day he lost everything. But now all of it sharpened into purpose. He cleared his throat and began. Micah's opening. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. He paused, letting the room settle. My name is Micah Hale. I am not the attorney you expected to see here today. 20 minutes ago, I was cleaning this very courtroom. Evidently, some people thought I was unqualified to speak. He glanced toward Lana Reeves, who stiffened. But justice, he continued, isn't reserved for those in expensive suits. It belongs to everyone, including my client. Arden swallowed hard. For reasons we will uncover, Micah said, voice deepening, Miss Whitlow's previous legal team abandoned her. Evidence was mishandled, documents suppressed, and someone has gone to extraordinary lengths to silence her. A ripple of unease spread among the spectators. The prosecution claims she stole technology. We will prove she created it, alone, years before her accusers even existed. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a razor-edge whisper, and we will expose who has been pulling the strings. Gasps echoed in the gallery. Judge Lowell raised her eyebrow, but she said nothing. She was watching Micah with a cautious respect now. Micah returned to the defense table. Arden exhaled slowly, something like hope flickering in her expression. Just as Micah prepares to cross-examine the first witness, he realizes something terrifying. The prosecution's timeline contains a hidden impossibility that could unravel everything. But exposing it might also expose him.
The first witness was sworn in before Micah had fully steadied his breathing. The courtroom lights, harsh and white, glared down on him like interrogation lamps. But he forced his shoulders back, grounding himself in the practiced calm he had buried for years. Judge Miriam Lowell glanced toward the prosecution. "Miss Reeves, you may call your first witness." Lana Reeves rose smoothly, her expression polished and triumphant. "The prosecution calls Dr. Randall Mercer." A man in his late 50s stepped forward, sharp suit, wire-rimmed glasses, and the unmistakable posture of someone accustomed to admiration. He settled into the witness seat with the air of a professor ready to lecture a classroom. Micah watched him closely. There was something in Mercer's eyes, an almost eager gleam that set off the first quiet alarm in Micah's mind. Witnesses this confident often believed their story too much, or had rehearsed it too well. "Dr. Mercer," Lana began, "please state your occupation." "I am a senior research specialist at Nexus Innovations," he answered, voice smooth but carrying a subtle tremor that only Micah seemed to hear. "And in your role, did you work on the quantum resonance project currently in dispute?" "Yes, I was part of the team that developed the foundation for the technology Miss Winlow later claimed as her own." Arden stiffened beside Micah. Lana paced slowly, her heels click-clicking like a metronome. "In your expert opinion, is it possible that Miss Whitlow developed the same system independently?" Mercer gave a sympathetic smile that barely masked his condescension. "Given the sophistication and the identical architecture, no. Such a coincidence is statistically improbable." "Improbable," Lena repeated, locking eyes with the jury. "Thank you, Doctor." Micah's fingertips tapped lightly on the table, an old habit from his trial days. He could feel the puzzle pieces misaligning and rearranging in his mind. Something about Mercer's testimony felt off. Not the words, the timing. Judge Miriam Lowell turned toward him. "Mr. Hale, your witness." Micah rose slowly, tugging down the thrift store suit jacket he'd bought just the night before. It didn't fit perfectly, but somehow that added to the gravity of the moment. A janitor stepping into an arena polished for giants. He approached the lectern with careful steps, his eyes never leaving Mercer's face. "Dr. Mercer," Micah began gently, "you said you helped develop the foundation for the technology in question. Could you remind the court when this research began?" Mercer adjusted his glasses. "Early 2021, January." Micah nodded. "And when did you claim the team created its first working algorithm?" "March 3rd, 2021. Micah clasped his hands behind his back, the stance of a man about to dismantle something brick by brick. "Dr. Mercer, are you absolutely sure about those dates?" "Of course." Micah moved closer to the witness stand, voice quiet but edged with steel. "Because the employment records your attorneys submitted show you were hired by Nexus on April 19th, 2021. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Mercer's shoulders stiffened. His eyes darted toward Lana Reeves, who sat frozen. Micah continued, his tone still polite. "Could you explain to the court how you participated in research that occurred 6 weeks before your employment date?" Mercer's mouth opened. Nothing came out. A reporter in the back stifled a gasp. Lana shot to her feet. "Objection! The prosecution is mischaracterizing." Micah held up a document. "This comes from Nexus's own HR logs, Your Honor." Judge Lowell leaned forward. "I will allow it. The witness may answer." Mercer swallowed. I was involved in the framework prior to official hire consulting." Micah's lips pressed together in a sympathetic frown. "Unpaid consulting? No contract. No paper trail whatsoever." Mercer's face turned the color of chalk.
Micah stepped back, addressing the jury as though genuinely puzzled. Because if there is no record of your involvement before your hire date, then your testimony regarding timeline and authorship becomes unreliable. He returned his gaze to Mercer. Isn't that correct? Mercer shook his head vigorously. No, yes. This is being twisted. Micah cut him off softly. Dr. Mercer, did you ever see Miss Whitlow's research notes prior to this lawsuit? No. Did you ever work directly with her? No. So you have no first-hand knowledge whether her invention predates Nexus's. Mercer's voice dropped to a whisper. No. Micah nodded calmly. Thank you. He walked back to the defense table as the jury stared at him with something new. Respect. Arden leaned toward him, voice barely audible. How did you know? Micah didn't answer immediately. His heart had begun pounding, not from adrenaline, but from the dangerous realization forming in his mind. Arden, he murmured, there's something wrong with all of this. Mercer wasn't just coached. He was rehearsing a timeline that can't exist. She frowned. You think he lied? I think the timeline itself was crafted by someone else. Judge Lowell's gavel struck. We will take a 10-minute recess. The tension in the courtroom snapped like a rope, releasing sudden pressure. As the audience buzzed with speculation, Arden whispered, Micah, what did you see? Micah turned slowly toward her. A pattern. Her breath hitched. She knew that tone. It belonged to the lawyer he once was, the one people whispered about in hallways. What kind of pattern? Micah slid a blank piece of paper between them and scribbled a list. Research dates, employment start dates, missing legal motions, withheld notes, disappearing attorneys. They all point to one thing, Micah said quietly. Your team didn't just abandon you. Someone else took control long before they disappeared. Arden's face paled. Someone inside Nexus? Micah shook his head. Someone above them. Before Arden could ask anything else, Micah's phone buzzed silently in his pocket. He pulled it out. A single text from an unsaved number lit the screen. Stop digging. You don't know what you're involving yourself in. Micah froze. Someone was watching. Someone who knew exactly what he had just uncovered. And someone who believed Micah Hale was not supposed to survive this trial. When Micah traces the anonymous warning text, he discovers it came from someone far closer and far more dangerous than he expected. Who sent it? And how much do they know?
Micah stared at the text message glowing on his phone screen. Stop digging. You don't know what you're involving yourself in. His thumb hovered over the screen, but he didn't tap, didn't breathe, didn't move. A message like that didn't come from an amateur. It wasn't threatening in the usual sense. It wasn't loud. It wasn't vulgar. It wasn't frantic. It was composed, calculated, confident. Someone who believed they had the right to warn him. Someone who believed they could. Arden watched him with tightened eyes. Micah, what is it? He locked his phone quietly. Nothing that changes what we need to do. But the truth sat bitter on his tongue. Something had changed, because whoever sent that message was close enough to know he'd found the flaw in Mercer's timeline. Close enough to see him as a threat. Close enough to know exactly what room he was in and when he read it. Micah slid his phone into his jacket pocket, forcing his heartbeat to slow. He couldn't show Arden fear. If he did, she would collapse. The trial was already hanging by a thread. He needed her focused, grounded, steadier than he felt. Judge Lowell re-entered after the recess. Court is back in session. Prosecution may call the next witness. But Lana Reeves didn't stand. She sat stiffly at her table, eyes locked on her laptop screen. Her expression was a mixture of irritation and something Micah hadn't expected. Nerves. She looked up, swallowing hard. Your Honor, the prosecution requests a short delay before calling the next witness. Judge Lowell frowned. On what grounds? Our next witness appears to be unavailable. Micah caught the slightest twitch of her jaw. She didn't mean unavailable. She meant missing. A murmur rippled through the room. Judge Lowell nodded slowly. You have 10 minutes, no more. Lana practically bolted from her chair, whispering urgently into her phone as she stepped aside. She tried to hide her panic, but Micah recognized the look. He had worn that same expression the day his own world had fallen apart. Micah, Arden's voice cut through his thoughts. Now tell me the truth. What happened? Micah leaned closer, but his eyes tracked Lana's frantic pacing. Someone warned me. Someone who knew exactly when I uncovered Mercer's lie. Arden's expression darkened. Someone inside the system? Micah nodded subtly. Or someone watching everything we say in this room. She inhaled sharply. I mean this case is bigger than either of us realized. Arden clasped her hands, grounding herself. What do we do? Micah's gaze hardened. We stay ahead. Micah's silent deduction. As the courtroom hummed with curious whispers, Micah replayed Mercer's testimony in his mind. A timeline error that blatant wasn't a mistake. It was a script. Someone handed Mercer those dates. Someone powerful enough to assume no one would challenge them. But how did the anonymous texter know the exact moment Micah realized the flaw? A hidden microphone? Impossible. The courthouse was routinely scanned. A hacked phone? Possible. But this felt deeper. A human plant? Someone in this room? He scanned the gallery as if he could see intentions written in ink across people's faces. No clarity, no answers. Only the tightening certainty that this was the opening act of something far darker. And then the door creaked open. A courtroom officer hurried to Judge Lowell, whispering urgently. She stiffened. Ms. Reeves, approach. Lana rushed forward. Judge Lowell's voice dropped to a hiss, but the courtroom fell silent enough to hear the tension behind it. Why was I not informed that your next witness has been placed under federal protective review? Micah's stomach dropped. Protective review? That wasn't ordinary witness trouble. That was government-level panic. Lana's face drained of color. Your Honor, I only just received the update. Judge Lowell's expression hardened. Explain. Lana swallowed hard. The witness was intercepted by federal agents this morning. I was told only that his testimony could compromise an active investigation. I was not given further details. The courtroom erupted in confusion. Micah's pulse kicked. This wasn't just a lawsuit. This wasn't about research theft or corporate rivalry. There was a federal investigation happening behind the scenes. And somewhere in that maze of secrecy, Micah and Arden were stepping on landmines. Arden turned to Micah, her voice barely a whisper. Micah, what does that mean? Micah wet his lips, eyes narrowing. It means someone above Nexus Innovations is scared. Very scared. And the warning text? It means they want me out of the way before I uncover too much. Her breath hitched. Micah, we need help. We need someone experienced, someone who... No, Micah cut in. The moment we bring another lawyer in, the people behind this will move faster. They'll bury us before we can breathe. Arden clenched her jaw. Then who do we trust? Who do we turn to? Micah didn't hesitate. My daughter. Arden blinked. Sophie?
She may not be a lawyer, Micah said, but she's a digital analyst with instincts sharper than anyone I've worked with. She's already digging unasked. If anyone can trace that anonymous text, it's Sophie. Arden nodded slowly. Call her. Micah pulled out his phone under the table. One text. Need you. Now. Urgent. It delivered instantly. 30 seconds later, his phone buzzed. A new message from Sophie. Dad, I'm already on the IP trace. You're not going to like what I found. Call me ASAP. Micah's stomach clenched. He typed back quickly. I'm in court. Can't talk. Who sent the warning? Her reply came 5 seconds later. The text came from inside the courthouse, from a government device. Dad, whoever warned you works for the federal investigation. Micah froze. A federal agent had warned him off. Not Nexus, not a hired thug, not a corporation. Someone inside the government itself was telling him, stop, walk away, or you will burn with this case. Micah lifted his head. Across the courtroom, Lana Reeves kept glancing at him. Not with confidence, with fear. And beyond her, Judge Lowell watched him with eyes sharper than earlier, eyes that seemed to ask if he knew something she didn't. He understood then. He wasn't just battling a corporation. He was stepping into a battlefield between powerful entities. Entities willing to silence anyone who threatened their secrets. Even him. Sophie Hale's trace uncovers the identity of the federal device used to send the warning. And when Micah learns whose desk it belongs to, he realizes the threat is coming from someone he sees every single day.
Micah sat frozen, Sophie's final message burning into his vision. The text came from a federal device. Dad, it originated from inside the courthouse, from someone who works there every single day. Inside the courthouse. The walls of courtroom 4B felt like they were inching inward, tightening around him. He scanned the room carefully. Judges, clerks, bailiffs, analysts, stenographers, deputies. Any one of them could be the person behind the warning. Judge Lowell cleared her throat firmly, jolting him back into the moment. Miss Reeves, since the prosecution has lost its next witness, we will proceed with your third. But Lana Reeves didn't move. She sat stiffly, her fingers trembling slightly around a pen she clearly wasn't using. The courtroom watched her, waiting for her usual confident stride and poised introduction. Instead, she whispered something to her co-counsel, a short, clipped exchange that carried panic. Micah didn't miss the tremor in her knees when she stood. Your Honor, Lana began, the prosecution respectfully requests an adjournment until tomorrow. A wave of whispers rippled around the gallery. Judge Lowell's expression stiffened. Miss Reeves, you are rapidly testing this court's patience. Lana swallowed. The new developments require internal review. We need time. A day at most. Judge Lowell leaned back, assessing her with sharp, thoughtful eyes. Is the prosecution unprepared to continue? Micah could feel it, the shift in momentum, subtle but seismic. Lana wasn't stalling for strategy. Lana was stalling for survival. Judge Lowell sighed. Very well, court is adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow. The gavel hit wood. The moment it did, Lana practically fled the courtroom, leaving folders behind in her panic, followed by her co-counsel who nearly tripped trying to collect them. Arden whispered, Micah, why would she run? Micah's jaw tightened because she wasn't expecting the federal investigation to cut off her witness. Whoever she thought was backing this case, whoever was providing the evidence, they just abandoned her. Arden's breath caught. So she's not the mastermind? No, Micah murmured. She's another pawn. Arden let out a shaky exhale. Then who's the one pushing all of this? Micah didn't answer. Because in that moment, Sophie's next message came through. Sophie's discovery. His phone buzzed against his palm. Dad, I found the device's user ID. The text came from a federal device, registered at the courthouse, assigned to someone in a judicial office, someone high-ranking. Micah's fingers tightened around the phone. He typed back quickly, "Who?" Sophie replied instantly, "Judge Miriam Lowell." Micah's heart slammed so hard it hurt. The courtroom had already emptied, but Judge Lowell remained on the bench, organizing files with methodical precision. She looked calm, routine, ordinary. Too ordinary. Arden noticed Micah's stillness. "What is it?" she whispered. I forced his face neutral. "Not here." "Micah!" I grabbed her arm gently. "Not here." The last thing he needed was to tip off the one person with the authority to bury them alive. They walked out through the side exit, usually used by attorneys, descending into the quieter hallway where the noise of reporters faded completely. Only when the crowd's voices had dimmed completely did Micah allow himself to breathe. Arden stopped. "Micah, tell me what's going on." He pulled out his phone and handed it to her. She read Sophie's message in silence. Color drained from her face. "Judge Lowell?" she whispered. "But she's been fair, even respectful." Micah nodded slowly. "That doesn't mean she's not under pressure, or working under someone else. Judges get politically pressured all the time." Arden's voice cracked slightly. "So she sent the warning to protect you?" Micah considered it. It didn't feel like a hostile threat. It felt like a plea, a warning from someone who didn't want innocent blood spilled. If she wanted to destroy us, she wouldn't have warned me. She'd have ruled against us already. Arden rubbed her arms as though suddenly cold. "So she's not our enemy?" "No," Micah said quietly. "But she's working in an environment where the real enemy is nearby or above her." They reached the courthouse exit, stepping into the crisp afternoon air. Reporters hadn't spotted them yet, giving them a brief window of clarity. Micah checked his phone again. Another message from Sophie. "Dad, if Judge Lowell didn't send it willingly, then someone used her login, or her device, or someone in her office." Micah froze. Someone in her office. He looked up at Arden. "That means we're not just dealing with someone with access to federal resources. We're dealing with someone who has access to a judge's private network." Arden swallowed. "Micah, do you know what that means?" Micah nodded grimly. "It means this reaches into the judicial system itself." Arden leaned against the stone column by the exit, trying to steady herself. "Micah, how did we step into something so dangerous?" Micah rubbed his temple. "When you created technology that could reshape the world's energy market, you didn't just disrupt corporations. You threatened people who influence governments, industries, entire economic ecosystems." Arden's voice trembled. "I didn't ask for any of this." "I know," Micah said softly, "but now we're in it, and we can't turn back." She stared at him for a long moment. Fear in her eyes, but something else too. Trust. "Then what's our next move?" Micah typed back to Sophie. "Trace further. Find out who in the judge's office used the device, but be careful. Don't alert anyone." Sophie sent back a simple, "On it." First, Micah said, "We need to assume every communication inside the courthouse is monitored." Arden nodded. "So where do we talk?" "My place," he said. "It's small but safe." "No," Arden shook her head. "Anyone targeting me would track your address first." Micah hesitated. She was right. "Then where?" he asked. Arden's eyes softened. "Come to my penthouse. It has secure rooms and private lines. We can talk there without interference." Micah frowned. "Arden, that's risky. If someone is watching you—" "They already are," she said quietly, "but I have better security than anyone else in this case, and right now I trust you more than my own legal team."
Micah exhaled slowly. There was no perfect option anymore. Only survival. "All right," he said. "We go to your penthouse." Arden nodded, but the moment they stepped out onto the courthouse steps, something froze Micah in place. A black sedan parked across the street. Tinted windows, engine still running. 2 silhouettes inside, watching them. Micah's entire body tensed. "Arden, don't look, just walk." She followed his lead, because danger wasn't stalking them from the shadows anymore. It was sitting right in front of them, engine humming, patience thinning, and whoever was inside was waiting for the moment they slipped. As Micah and Arden head toward her penthouse, the black sedan begins following them through Manhattan, and Micah realizes someone isn't just monitoring them anymore. Someone is hunting them.
The moment Micah and Arden stepped off the courthouse stairs, he could feel it. Not see it, not hear it, but feel it. That kind of prickling awareness that tightened the muscles at the back of his neck. A survival instinct honed from years of being hunted by shadows with too much money and too much influence. The black sedan hadn't moved, hadn't rolled down a window, hadn't tried to conceal itself either. That was what made it worse. Predators hid. Owners of the world did not. Micah gently touched Arden's arm and muttered, "Walk. Don't speed up. Don't look back." Arden's steps faltered for half a second before she steadied herself. She kept her chin lifted as though walking away from reporters instead of an unknown threat. "Is them?" she whispered. Micah didn't answer, because them could be a dozen groups now. Corporate mercenaries, federal agents, operatives tied to Nexus, or someone embedded in the courthouse like Sophie had suggested. "We'll take the side street," Micah said quietly. "Don't head toward your usual route." Arden nodded, trusting him more with each breath. They curved around the block, weaving through office workers and tourists, the hum of downtown Manhattan swelling around them. But even in the crowd, Micah felt the weight of the sedan's presence behind them. Arden finally whispered, "Micah, is the car still following?" Micah didn't look back. Yes. She inhaled sharply. What do they want? For us to panic, or to corner us. Not sure which. They reached the next crosswalk. A taxi pulled up to the curb, perfectly timed, as if summoned. Micah grabbed Arden's hand. "Taxi, now." They climbed in. The driver, an older man with thick glasses and a calm demeanor, glanced at them in the rearview mirror. "Where to?" he asked. Arden opened her mouth to give her address, but Micah quickly cut in. "West 54th. Just drive." Arden stared. "Micah, my home!" "We don't go there unless we're sure we're not being tailed." She closed her mouth. The taxi pulled into traffic. Micah turned slightly, using the reflection in the window glass as his rearview mirror. The black sedan merged into traffic behind them. Michael's pulse kicked. They're still on us. Arden's breath trembled. "Micah, keep your head low and don't look at them." She swallowed hard. "Why aren't the police doing anything? Aren't there patrol cars?" Micah gave a humorless laugh. "Arden, if the people behind this could infiltrate a judge's office, what makes you think they're scared of the NYPD?" The taxi driver cleared his throat. "Sir, is there something you want me to do?" Micah met the driver's eyes in the mirror. "Yeah, lose them." He nodded once, tightening his grip on the wheel. "You got it." He jerked the taxi sharply left, cutting across 2 lanes of traffic. A delivery driver honked angrily, but the taxi kept weaving through gaps as if it were second nature. Arden braced her hands against the seat. Micah steadied her. "We'll be okay." "Will we?" she whispered. Micah didn't lie. "We're gonna try." The chase. The taxi sped down 7th Avenue, then swerved east toward Midtown's dense grid of streets. The driver expertly slid between vans, buses, and tourists glued to their phones. Micah stole glances at the side mirror.
The black sedan stayed with them, effortless, unhurried. "They're not trying to catch us," Micah murmured. "They're tracking us." Arden's voice shook. "Why? To intimidate us?" "No," Micah said quietly. "To see where we're going." The realization hit Arden like cold water. My home! Or somewhere else important. Anywhere they think we might hide evidence or meet someone. He palmed his phone. A new message from Sophie had just arrived. "Dad, I traced deeper. Whoever used the judge's device had admin privileges, someone high-ranking, and the signal is still active, meaning they're logged in right now." Micah replied quickly. "We're being followed. Need to regroup." "Followed by who?" "Wish I knew. Stay off public Wi-Fi. Stay inside. Lock the door." He put the phone away. Arden watched him. "She knows something else, doesn't she?" "She's connecting the dots faster than I hoped, but she's safe at home. That gives us time." Arden's hand brushed his, unintentional but desperate. "Micah, what if this goes beyond both of us? What if this is bigger than a lawsuit?" Micah squeezed her hand. "It is." He didn't soften the truth. "You built something that could change the world, and people who profit from the world as it is will do anything to stop you." Arden's breath caught. "Even kill us?" Micah didn't answer. They both knew the answer anyway. The escape route. The taxi driver suddenly swerved right, pulling into an underground parking structure. Micah blinked. "Why are we turning?" "You said lose them," the driver said calmly. "Tunnel from this garage connects to another exit 2 blocks away. If they don't know it exists, they can't follow." Micah stared. You know this garage?" "Drove a cab 20 years. I know every rat hole in this city." The taxi descended into the garage, where the dim lighting buzzed faintly. Micah looked back. The black sedan didn't follow. Not yet. The driver parked behind a concrete column. "You have 10 minutes to slip out. Take the elevator to the second exit. It opens onto 53rd. They won't see you." Micah paid the fare with trembling fingers. "Thank you," he said sincerely. The driver nodded once. "Be careful. People don't tail like that unless they're confident they can silence you later." Arden's lips parted, fear tightening her expression. Micah touched her shoulder. "Let's move." A moment of breath. The elevator clicked open, releasing them onto a quieter street shaded by office towers. The world looked normal again. People walking dogs, a street vendor grilling kebabs, a bike courier zipping past. But normal was a lie. Arden leaned against the building wall, catching her breath. "Micah, what now?" Micah wiped the sweat from his neck. "We find somewhere off the grid to talk, somewhere even your security team doesn't know." Arden nodded slowly. "There's a building my company owns, a research annex no one uses anymore. No cameras, no scheduled maintenance. We can go there." Micah considered it. "Will anyone expect you there?" "No one even remembers it exists." "Good, we go there." They started walking, blending into the mid-afternoon foot traffic. But just as they reached the corner, Micah's phone buzzed again. Sophie. "Dad, I found something else. The device used to send the warning, it wasn't just logged in. It sent another message. Not to you, to someone else." Micah stopped cold. Arden stiffened. "Micah, what message?" He typed quickly. "What did it say?" Sophie replied instantly. "The janitor is digging too deep. Proceed with stage 2. Arden's face drained of color. Micah read it twice, chest tightening. Stage 2. They weren't just watching anymore. Someone had given the order to escalate, to take action, to eliminate the problem, to eliminate him. As Micah and Arden raced toward the forgotten research annex, Stage 2 begins, and the people behind it send someone Micah knows, someone he never expected to face.
Micah didn't move for several seconds.
The words on his screen didn't just threaten him, they confirmed something far worse. They had a plan, a structure, a sequence, and Stage 2 meant the point of no return. Arden leaned closer, voice trembling. "Micah, did Stage 2 mean—" He slipped the phone into his pocket and forced himself to breathe evenly. "It means they're done watching. Now they'll act." Arden's breath hitched like she'd been struck. "Then we need to get off the street." Micah agreed. They hurried down 53rd Street, blending into the steady flow of pedestrians. Every passing car made Micah's pulse jump. Every stranger's glance felt suspicious. He knew this sensation too well, the hum of being hunted. It had swallowed him 15 years ago and never truly released him. But this time, the stakes were higher. This time, he wasn't running alone. "We're 2 blocks from the annex," Arden murmured. "It's an old building we used during early testing phases. No one set foot in there in almost 9 years. Good. Then no one will track us there." But a small voice inside him whispered the opposite. Whoever these people were, they didn't need cameras or paper trails. They had power in places where walls had ears. Arden glanced back nervously. "Do you think the sedan followed us?" Micah checked reflections in windows, glass doors, car mirrors, his mind calculating angles automatically. "No, but that doesn't matter anymore." Arden swallowed. "Why?" Micah's voice dropped. "Because Stage 2 won't be obvious. They won't chase us. They'll send someone who can get close without drawing suspicion." They turned onto a quieter street lined with older buildings. The annex sat halfway down, a square gray structure with steel-framed windows and a faded sign, "Whitlow Research, Phase 1 Facility." Arden punched a code into the door's keypad. "It still works," she said, surprised. "They never deactivated it." Micah ushered her inside. The door clicked shut behind them. Silence enveloped them like a heavy blanket. Dust floated lazily in stale air. Old lab benches were still scattered with notebooks and glass beakers. The place smelled of metal and forgotten ambition. But it was quiet, comfortably, reassuringly quiet. Micah turned to Arden. "We'll talk here, but first—" He reached for his phone. Sophie had sent 3 more messages. "Dad, I traced the second message. It didn't go out to a corporation. It didn't go to Nexus. It went to a personal line." Micah's stomach tightened. "A personal line? Whose?" he typed. The response buzzed instantly. "You're not going to believe this. It went to someone connected to you." Micah's blood ran cold. He typed, "Who?" Sophie's next message made his throat dry. "Benjamin Hale." Micah froze. Arden frowned. "Who's Benjamin Hale?" Micah swallowed hard. "My brother." The brotherhood Micah tried to forget. Arden stared at him. "Micah, I didn't know you had a brother." Micah laughed quietly, a hollow, humorless sound. "I don't. Not anymore." "Micah, he cut ties with me when I was disbarred. He said I had stained our name. He worked on the corporate side of law, compliance, energy investments." Micah shook his head bitterly. "When the firm turned their back on me, he didn't hesitate to do the same." Arden felt her chest tighten. "Micah, are you saying your brother is part of this?" "I'm saying," Micah said slowly, "that whoever controls this network trusted him enough to send him Stage 2. Which means he's involved, maybe deeply." Arden took a shaky breath. "Micah, does Sophie know him?" "She met him once as a child, but he never stayed in her life." Arden hesitated. "Then, Micah, what would your brother want with me?" Micah closed his eyes briefly, just long enough for fragmented memories to push through.
Benjamin's cologne, Benjamin's crisp suits, Benjamin's smug smile at the dinner table when he received his first promotion, Benjamin's cold voice the day Micah lost everything. "You brought shame to the Hale name. Don't call me again." Micah opened his eyes. "He's tied to the energy sector. Arden, your invention threatens energy giants. If Benjamin is connected to them, if he's acting as their legal shield, he'd see you as a threat." Arden sank onto one of the old lab stools. "Micah, I never meant to hurt anyone. I just wanted to build something." Micah sat across from her. "I know, but the world isn't scared of criminals with inventions. It's scared of geniuses." Her eyes glistened. "And now it's putting the people close to me and you in danger." He reached across the bench, gently setting his hand over hers. "We're going to expose all of them. We're going to get ahead of stage 2. She nodded, though her fingers trembled beneath his. Micah checked Sophie's last message. "Dad, Benjamin isn't hiding. He just pinged the courthouse server again. A location tag came through. He's close. Very close." Micah stiffened. "Arden, we need to—" A faint sound echoed from the hallway outside. Quiet. Measured. Heavy footsteps. Someone was in the building. Arden's breath caught. "Micah!" He held up a hand. "Don't speak." The footsteps grew clearer. Someone moved with deliberate slowness, as though mapping every corner of the annex. "Arden, this building was decommissioned. No one has a reason to be here unless they tracked us." The footsteps stopped right outside the lab door. Micah motioned Arden behind a storage cabinet. They crouched low, hearts pounding. A shadow paused beneath the crack under the door. Then the doorknob turned. A soft click. The door creaked open. A man stepped inside. Tall, clean-cut, suit tailored within an inch of perfection. The same steel-gray eyes Micah remembered from childhood, only sharper now, colder. Benjamin Hale. He stepped forward, scanning the room with the calm patience of a predator. "Micah," he said quietly, voice smooth as polished metal, "I know you're here." Arden clapped a hand over her mouth to stifle her breath. Benjamin continued, voice eerily calm. "You always made things difficult." He walked deeper into the lab, footsteps soft and deliberate. "And now you've entangled yourself in something you can't win." Arden felt her trembling beside him. He pressed a steadying hand against hers. Benjamin stopped in the center of the room. Then he spoke the words that made Micah's blood run cold. "Stage 2 has begun. Step out now, and maybe I won't kill her first." Arden's fingers dug into Micah's arm. Micah rose slowly, quietly. Every instinct in him screamed. His own brother had come to finish the job. Benjamin Hale has found them, and he didn't come alone. As Micah confronts the brother who betrayed him, Arden discovers the real reason Stage 2 targets Micah personally, and what they plan for Stage 3.
Micah stepped out from behind the storage cabinet, slow and controlled, hands raised just enough to show he wasn't holding anything. But nothing about his posture was surrender. His muscles were coiled tight, every instinct ready to react. Benjamin Hale stood in the center of the abandoned lab like he owned the place, like he owned the world. His tailored suit was charcoal gray, unmarred by dust, looking wildly out of place in the derelict facility. Under the fluorescent lights, his steel-gray eyes gleamed with something sharp and clinical. Arden stayed hidden behind the bench, breath trembling against her lips. Micah motioned subtly with his fingers. "Stay low, stay quiet." Benjamin smiled. "There you are." Micah didn't move closer. "You shouldn't be here, Ben." Benjamin's smile widened. Isn't that ironic? Because I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, unlike you. Micah ignored the jab. You sent the message. Benjamin gave a slow, mocking clap, finally using that brain again. I was worried all the disinfectant fumes had dulled it. Micah bristled, but kept his voice level. Why warn me? Why not just do whatever you came here to do? Benjamin's expression shifted, just slightly, enough to reveal the truth behind his arrogance. Because I didn't want to kill you, not unless you made yourself a problem, he said. Micah's jaw clenched. And now? Benjamin's smile faded. Now you're a problem. Arden's hand tightened around the metal shelf, her knuckles white. Benjamin hadn't seen her yet, but it was only a matter of time. Benjamin sighed. Micah, you never understood how the world works. You still don't. There are structures in place, alliances, industries that keep the country alive. Your little client, he flicked his eyes toward the shadows, unaware of her exact location, threatens all of that. Micah's breathing slowed. He recognized the tone. Benjamin wasn't improvising, he was repeating doctrine, the kind of justification someone tells themselves to sleep at night. You're working for Nexus? Micah asked. Benjamin scoffed. Nexus? Please. They're one head of a hydra. I'm working for the ones who cut the checks, the ones who stand to lose billions if Arden Whitlow's tech ever hits the market. So you're a fixer now, a cleanup man, Micah said. Benjamin frowned. I'm a protector of national stability. Micah took a small step forward, voice low. You're protecting your paycheck. Benjamin's gaze sharpened. Then maybe we're both here for selfish reasons. You get to play hero again, something you never could accept you aren't. Micah's jaw tightened, but he didn't rise to the bait. He continued, I told them you'd walk away when warned, but you didn't. You never do what's expected of you. Micah's muscles tensed. He could feel Arden's fear from across the room. What's stage 2? Micah asked. Benjamin exhaled with dramatic patience. Stage 2 is containment. Remove the variables, silence the leaks, clean up the mess. His gaze sharpened. You're the mess, Micah. Micah's heart hammered so violently it hurt. If you wanted to kill me, you would have done it already. Benjamin shrugged. True. Personally, I'm sentimental. You are always the weaker one, but you're still blood. And believe it or not, I'd prefer not to shoot my own brother today. Micah's hand curled into a fist at his side. Then why are you here? Because the people above me think you're a threat, and when they think someone's a threat, there are procedures. Micah swallowed. And Arden? Benjamin's cold smile returned. She's not my concern. She won't live long enough to matter. Arden bit down on her lip to keep from gasping. Micah stepped directly into Benjamin's line of sight, blocking view of Arden's hiding place. She's innocent, Ben. She built something brilliant, something that could change the world for the better. And that's the problem, Benjamin replied smoothly. Change is destabilizing, and destabilizing things ruin markets, ruin power. He leaned forward, voice chillingly casual. People like her get buried so the world stays spinning. Micah's voice dropped. Not this time. Benjamin sighed. You were always stubborn, even as a kid, always protecting people who dragged you down. His jaw tightened. But this time, your stubbornness will get you killed. Micah didn't blink. Tell me what stage 3 is. Benjamin's smile vanished. He reached into his suit coat and pulled out a small object. Not a weapon. Worse, a burner phone. He tapped the screen once, displaying a countdown timer. 0 seconds, 17 minutes, and 52 seconds. Micah's blood ran cold. What did you do? Benjamin slid the burner back into his pocket. Stage 3 is leverage, something to ensure you comply. Micah's voice cracked, barely audible. What leverage? Benjamin gazed at him with chilling sympathy. You left someone very important alone today, Micah. Micah froze. Sophie. Benjamin continued slowly. Your daughter is resourceful, smart, too smart. She dug into the wrong system today, and now my employers consider her part of the problem. Micah's vision tunneled, the room blurred. "Where is she?" Micah demanded, voice shaking. Benjamin lifted a hand casually. "Relax, she's not dead. Yet." He didn't have to say it. Micah lunged forward instinctively, but Benjamin raised one finger. "Take one more step, and you will never see Sophie again." Micah stopped, paralyzed, breath gone. Arden's hand flew to her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. Benjamin stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You have 17 minutes to decide," he whispered. "End your involvement in this case. Convince your client to settle. Destroy whatever evidence you have. Walk away forever. Do that, and Sophie goes home." Micah's world spun. "And if I don't?" he whispered. Benjamin's answer was soft, almost gentle. "Then Sophie's story ends today." Arden couldn't stay hidden anymore. She stood up. "Benjamin, she's just a girl. She's innocent." Benjamin turned, mildly amused. "Ah, there you are. Ms. Whitlow, I presume. I admire your work, truly. But brilliance doesn't protect you from consequences." Micah stepped between them, trembling with rage. "Ben, if you hurt her—" Benjamin lifted his hands. "I won't, as long as you comply." The timer in his pocket kept ticking. 16 minutes and 27 seconds. Micah's heart pounded against his ribs like a trapped animal. Benjamin walked backward toward the exit, confident. "I'll be waiting outside. Choose wisely, little brother." The door shut behind them. Silence pressed in around them. Arden grabbed Micah as he staggered back, collapsing against the lab table. His hand shook violently. "Micah, we'll get her back, I swear." But Micah wasn't listening. He stared at the door, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. "This stops now," he said, voice shaking with fury. "They want to use my daughter as leverage?" He inhaled sharply. "Then we're done playing defense." Arden squeezed his arm. "What do we do?" Micah lifted his phone. "Sophie," he whispered, "please answer." Sophie finally answers, but not from where Micah expected. She's already one step ahead, and in far more danger than either of them realize.
Micah's finger trembled around his phone as he pressed Sophie's contact. The call rang once, twice. "Please, Sophie," he whispered. "Come on." The ringing cut abruptly. For a heartbeat, there was only silence. Then, "Dad?" Micah sagged forward against the table, his knees nearly giving out. Relief crashed through him so violently, he had to grip the bench to stay upright. Arden pressed a hand to her chest, exhaling shakily. "Sophie," Micah said, voice cracking, "where are you? Are you safe?" Her voice came through in a whisper, quiet, urgent, breathless. "I'm fine, but I can't say the same for your living room." Micah froze. "What happened?" "Someone broke in. A man, late 40s maybe. Expensive shoes, terrible cologne, moved like he owned the place." A pause. "He tore through everything." Micah's heartbeat punched upward so hard it hurt. "Did he see you?" "No," she murmured. "I saw him first. I slipped out the fire escape." Micah clutched the phone so tight his knuckles blanched. "Sophie, you shouldn't be out on the streets alone right now." "I'm not on the street. I'm hiding in Mrs. Patel's broom closet 2 floors down from our apartment. She's at work. She won't mind." Micah let out a breath that was half relief, half anguish. "Listen to me carefully. You're not safe there." "I know," she said, voice low. "Benjamin sent someone, didn't he?" Arden's eyes widened at the mention of Benjamin. Micah swallowed hard. "How do you know that name?" Sophie said, "I traced the message, and when I saw the intruder, something about him reminded me of one of Uncle Ben's old colleagues, the kind who followed orders no matter how dirty." Micah shut his eyes for a moment. His brother's shadow stretched far longer than he ever realized. "Sophie," he whispered, "I need you to come to me. Now." She inhaled sharply. I can't go outside. There's a black SUV parked across from our apartment. Engine running. Windows tinted. Arden and Micah exchanged a horrified look. They found her already, Arden whispered. Micah said with a grip on the phone, like it was a lifeline. Sophie, just stay where you are. I'm coming to you. No, Sophie said too sharply. Too sharply. Dad, don't. They're watching you too. Sophie, Micah said, you don't understand. She hissed. They know where you are. They know you're with Ms. Whitlow, and they know exactly what building you two just entered. Arden stilled. How? This building isn't even on record anymore. Sophie whispered, because Benjamin used the courthouse network to ping your location. Dad, they're not just tracking your phones, they're using automated movement predictions. They know where you are, not where your phone is. Micah's stomach twisted. Benjamin's threat wasn't bluster. It was infrastructure-level surveillance. Sophie, Micah said slowly, how long do we have before someone gets here? There was a pause. Then, 5 minutes, maybe less. Arden clapped a hand over her mouth. Micah's breath left him in a rush. Sophie, I need you to move now. Crawl out the back of Patel's closet. There's a vent. I know, Sophie said. Already found it. Micah froze. You did? Dad, Sophie said softly, I'm not a kid anymore. You've been teaching me to prepare for situations like this since I was 12. Micah felt a painful twist in his chest. I never wanted you to need it. Sophie's voice softened. I know, but I do, and I'm using it. Arden whispered, Micah, we have to move. Micah nodded, but something inside him shifted. Something primal, protective, and furious. Benjamin had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Micah didn't care about cases or courts anymore. He cared about one thing, getting Sophie back. They hurried toward the back exit of the annex. Arden typed a code into a small panel near the door, one hidden behind a rusted metal plate. You remember that? Micah asked. She said quietly, I remember everything I built. The door unlatched with a soft metallic click. Micah pushed it open and froze. Across the alley, less than 20 feet away, stood a man in a black coat. He wasn't holding a weapon. He didn't need to. He lifted his hand and tapped his earpiece, eyes locking directly onto Micah. Arden grasped. They're already here. The man lifted a phone and read from the screen, voice chillingly calm. Stage 2, confirmation, Hale located. Micah grabbed Arden's hand, back inside. They slammed the door shut and sprinted through the dark hallways of the annex. Arden's breath came in harsh bursts. We're trapped. No, Micah said. There's one more exit. Arden blinked. What exit? Micah turned sharply, heart pounding. The one you forgot, you built. What? Micah pointed to a rusty maintenance panel near the ground. Arden's eyes widened. The waste chute tunnel. Exactly. You can't fit through that. Micah grabbed the handle. We don't have to fit. Arden's confusion turned to horror as realization hit. Micah, she whispered, that tunnel connects to the old sewage bypass. It's toxic, abandoned, collapsing. We could suffocate in there. Micah pulled the panel open. We'll suffocate for sure if we stay here. Footsteps echoed behind them. 3 sets. Coordinated. Dangerous. Arden flinched. Micah? He said, we're going. Now. He helped Arden into the chute first. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Benjamin's voice echoed through the hall. Micah, you can't outrun this. Micah gritted his teeth. Watch me. He crawled into the chute, pulling the panel shut behind him just as shadows reached the corner. The tunnel was pitch black, cold, narrow, but alive. And for the first time since Benjamin appeared, Micah felt a thin thread of hope. Arden whispered in the dark, Where does this lead?
Micah's voice was steady, calm, certain. To Sophie. As Micah and Arden crawl through the collapsing underground tunnels, Benjamin's team begins sealing exits, and Sophie discovers someone else is hunting her too.
The sewage bypass tunnel was narrower than Micah remembered, cold, cramped, the scent of rust and stagnant water clinging to every breath. He dragged himself forward on his elbows, boots scraping against decades-old concrete. Arden crawled just ahead of him. He could hear her breath trembling in the darkness. "Micah, how long is this tunnel?" she whispered. 200 feet, maybe less," he said softly. "Maybe?" Her voice cracked. "It's been years since I saw the schematics," he admitted. "But it connects to the old storm drainage system. That gives us at least 3 ways out." Arden exhaled shakily. "And if those exits are sealed?" Micah didn't answer, because he had the same fear. Benjamin's warning echoed in the back of his mind. Stage 2 has begun. And then the footsteps, they had been so close, too close. Arden kept crawling, her fingers brushing damp concrete. "What if they know about this tunnel?" Micah swallowed. "Then they'll be sealing it now." A metallic echo rang through the shaft above them, the sound of a door slamming shut above them, then another, and another. Arden froze. "Micah, is that—" "Yes," he said, voice tight. "They're locking down the exits." She turned her head, eyes wide in the faint sliver of light reflecting off a rusted pipe. "We're going to get trapped." Micah's voice hardened. "Not today." He pressed a firm hand against her shoulder. "Keep moving." She nodded, pushing forward. Above them, muffled voices carried through the metal vents. Benjamin's voice was unmistakable, calm, confident. "Seal every exterior hatch. He's in the tunnel. I want him funneled to the south exit." Another voice answered. "And the girl?" Benjamin's reply cut deep. "She's already being handled." Micah's stomach twisted. Rage flared like fire in his chest. He gritted his teeth so hard his jaw ached. Arden looked back at him, terrified. "Micah, Sophie." "She's alive," he whispered, not because he knew, but because he had to believe it. "She's smarter than they think." Arden swallowed, nodding even though she knew the truth was more fragile than his voice suggested. The tunnel narrows. The bypass tunnel grew tighter, forcing them onto their stomachs. Arden's breathing grew faster. "Micah, I can't—" "You can," he said firmly, "one elbow at a time." She pushed forward, shaking. Micah crawled after her, the darkness pressing against his spine like a weight. A splash echoed down the tunnel ahead. Arden froze. What was that? Micah listened. Another splash. Closer. Wet. Heavy. His blood chilled. Not water. A shadow moved in the distant gloom. Something, or someone, was in the tunnel with them. Arden clapped her hand over her mouth to stop a scream. Micah whispered, "Move, faster." They scrambled forward, scraping skin against concrete, ignoring the sting. The tunnel curved sharply to the left, and as they rounded it, the sound grew clearer. The rhythmic drag of boots sliding through shallow water. Not a rush, not a sprint, a careful hunting pace. Someone was following them. Arden breathed. "Micah, they found another way in." "Keep going," he whispered fiercely. "Don't stop." But the tunnel ahead sloped downward into deeper darkness, and the smell of rot thickened. A faint rumbling sound echoed from below. Arden hesitated. "That doesn't sound safe." "It's not," he admitted, "but staying is worse." They slid down the slope, gravel scraping beneath them until the tunnel widened enough to crawl on their hands and knees again. Micah risked one glance back. A silhouette turned the corner. Tall, muscular, head bent to avoid the low ceiling, moving like a predator who knew the terrain. Micah's pulse spiked. This wasn't Benjamin. Benjamin was the strategist, not the field operative. This was the man Sophie saw in their apartment, the one who tore through everything,
The one Benjamin sent. The enforcer. Micah whispered sharply, "Arden, now's not the time to panic, but we have company." Arden bit her lip. "Is he close?" "Close enough," Micah said. "Don't look back." She didn't. They crawled faster. Sophie on the run. 2 blocks away, Sophie slipped out of Mrs. Patel's vent shaft and into the narrow maintenance hallway of the apartment building. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She held her backpack tight and breathed through the panic suffocating her chest. Her father had told her to go to the address, but getting there meant leaving the building. And outside, someone was waiting. She glanced down the stairwell. A man stood at the bottom floor. Tall, broad shoulders. He spoke quietly into an earpiece. Sophie pressed herself against the wall. They're everywhere. She needed a different exit. Her eyes fell on the rooftop access ladder. She hurried to it, climbing quietly. The metal rungs vibrated with every touch, but she kept going, teeth clenched to keep from making noise. The rooftop door was locked. She pulled a hairpin from her bag and picked the lock, hands shaking but precise. The door clicked. Sophie stepped onto the roof and froze. Another man stood at the far edge, scanning the street below. Not the same man as before, a second operative. Working together. Sophie dropped into a crouch behind an air vent. Sweat beaded on her forehead. They're everywhere. But she wasn't stupid. She didn't panic. She watched. She timed his pacing. When the man turned away, she sprinted, quiet as a whisper, across the rooftop toward the neighboring building's maintenance hatch. Her hands shook as she worked the lock. Come on, come on. It opened. Sophie ducked into the darkness and disappeared. Back in the tunnel, Micah and Arden reached an intersection, 3 tunnels branching in different directions like a trident. "Which one?" Arden whispered. Micah listened. Behind them, the enforcer's boots got louder. Ahead of them, faint airflow drifted from the right passage. Right. That leads to the drainage grid. Arden crawled into the right tunnel and froze, because the faintest glimmer of metal lay across the entrance. A wire. Thin. Nearly invisible. A tripwire. Arden gasped. "Micah!" He grabbed her just in time. "It's rigged." Benjamin's voice echoed through the vents above. "Seal the southern grid. Leave only the west exit open." Micah's heart sank. Benjamin was hurting them, forcing them into a trap. He scanned the tunnels. Left, dead end. Right, tripwire. Center, faint glow. "What's the center one?" Arden whispered. Micah swallowed. "The maintenance shaft. It leads to the filtration chamber." Arden blanked. "Isn't that underwater?" "It's partially." "Micah, that's insane." "Everything else is death," he said. Footsteps echoed closer. Arden nodded, swallowing fear. "Then let's do insane." They crawled into the center passage. The enforcer reached the intersection behind them and followed. Micah and Arden reached the partially flooded filtration chamber only to discover someone is already waiting inside. Meanwhile, Sophie chooses a path that will either save her or lead her straight into Benjamin's hands.
The filtration shaft was barely wide enough for Micah and Arden to crawl through. Cold moisture dripped from above, splattering onto their hands and soaking into their sleeves. The air smelled of mildew and stagnant water, heavy and suffocating. Arden whispered, "Micah, I can't see anything." "You will," he murmured. "Just a few more feet." Behind them, the echo of boots quickened, measured, steady. Too close. Arden stiffened. "He's gaining." Micah kept crawling. "Then we keep moving." Finally, the tunnel slanted downward sharply. A dull blue glow shimmered at the end of the shaft. "That's the chamber," Micah whispered. Arden paused. "Micah, there's water down there. A lot of it." Micah exhaled. I know. Will we have to go through it? He didn't answer, because the truth was complicated and terrifying. He slid forward until his palms found open air. The chute ended abruptly, overlooking a massive subterranean chamber roughly the size of a basketball court. Rusted pipes ran along the ceiling, pumping faint streams of filtered wastewater into a pool that took up half the space. A thin walkway wound around the perimeter of the water, corroded, cracked, barely stable. Dim blue lights pulsed under the surface, part of an ancient cleaning system. They cast an eerie glow across the room. Drip. Drip. Every sound echoed like a gunshot. Arden crawled up beside him, swallowing hard. We can't climb down that. We have to. Micah scanned the drop. We're 10 feet up. If we lower ourselves and hang, the fall won't kill us. Arden hesitated. Won't kill us isn't comforting. We're running out of time. As if to punctuate the sentence, the tunnel behind them echoed with a metallic clang. The enforcer had reached the corner. Arden stiffened. Micah, he's gaining. No choice. Go, now. He lowered her by gripping her wrists and easing her toward the ledge. Hang there. On my count, you drop. She shook. And you? I'll be right behind you. Arden hung from the edge, her feet dangling over the glow-lit water below. 3, 2. A shadow filled the end of the tunnel. Micah's heartbeat spiked. 1. Arden dropped. Her cry echoed through the chamber, followed by a splash and a sharp gasp. Micah, the water's deeper than it looks. Stay afloat, he said, voice trembling. Just stay afloat. He lowered himself to the edge and dropped a second later. The cold hit him like a punch. Water surged up his chest and chin, dragging him downward before he fought to resurface. He gasped for air, arms cutting through the freezing water. Arden reached for him. This way, the walkway. He shoved her up first, then hauled himself beside her. The moment his boots hit the walkway, a faint creak shuddered beneath them. Don't run, he whispered. Move slow. Arden nodded, dripping, shaking, hair plastered to her face. Above them, the enforcer dropped from the chute. He hit the water with a massive splash and resurfaced like something unbothered by cold or pain. Arden gasped. He's not stopping. Micah grabbed her hand. Move. They edged along the metal walkway, left foot then right. Each step moaned under their weight, metal bending dangerously. The enforcer swam toward them with terrifying ease. Halfway across the walkway, a figure stepped out from the shadows across the chamber. Arden froze. Micah stopped breathing. Because standing on the far side of the filtration chamber, dry, calm, and waiting, was Benjamin Hale. He leaned against a support beam, arms crossed, expression bored. Took you long enough, he said. Arden whispered, Oh, God. Benjamin didn't look surprised. He looked amused. You know, Benjamin said, voice echoing across the chamber, when I told my team to funnel you here, I expected you to take longer. But props to you both, really. Micah jaw clenched. You did not funnel us. We chose this path. Yes, that's what you do, Micah. You make choices. Terrible ones. Arden swallowed. What do you want from us? Benjamin tilted his head. Want? Arden, this isn't personal. But your invention threatens billions of dollars and entire geopolitical alliances. There are people above me who would rather salt the earth than let your work see daylight. Micah stepped forward, fists clenching. If this is about Arden's research, take me. Leave her out of it. Benjamin's expression softened, almost sympathetically. Micah, I'm not the one who decides. I'm just the one cleaning up the pieces. Behind them, water sloshed violently. The enforcer had reached the walkway. Micah, he's coming. I know. Benjamin straightened. The terms haven't changed, little brother. Walk away from this case. Convince Arden to do the same. Destroy the evidence you've collected. If you comply, Sophie survives. Micah's breath cracked. If we don't? Benjamin shrugged lightly. Then, Sophie's story ends today. Arden's voice trembled with fury. She's a child, your own niece. Benjamin's eyes hardened. Blood is irrelevant when the stakes are national. Micah's voice rose, raw and shaking. You've become a monster. No, Benjamin said calmly. I've become realistic. Arden tightened her grip on Micah's arm. Micah, we need to stall him. Give Sophie time. But Micah didn't answer, because at that moment, his phone vibrated inside his soaked jacket. He fumbled it out, barely functioning after the water. The screen flickered. A message from Sophie. Dad, I made it to the bunker, but I'm not alone. Someone else is here. Who? Micah typed with trembling thumbs. Sophie's reply came instantly. Someone who says they want to help. Someone who says they know Benjamin. Someone who says you shouldn't trust anyone at the courthouse. Micah's breath caught. Arden leaned in. What is it? What did she say? Micah stared at the flickering screen. Sophie's final message burned into his vision. Dad, the person here says stage 3 isn't about killing you. It's about replacing you. Micah's heart stopped. Replace him? Benjamin noticed the shift in Micah's expression. What's wrong, brother? You look like you just saw the truth. Micah looked up slowly. What is stage 3? Benjamin smirked. It's simple. Stage 2 removes obstacles. He stepped forward. Stage 3 controls the narrative. Another step. And you, Micah, he pointed at him, are the narrative. Arden's breath hitched. Micah. Benjamin's smile sharpened. Stage 3 is your legacy. He paused. Or your disappearance. As Micah and Arden face the enforcer in the flooded chamber, Sophie discovers the identity of the person who reached her, and the truth will shatter everything Micah believes about the enemy and the ally hiding in plain sight.
The filtration chamber trembled with every step Benjamin took along the metal platform. The blue lights below flickered against the water's surface, illuminating Micah and Arden from beneath, like ghosts rising from the dark. Behind them, the enforcer climbed onto the walkway, dripping, eyes fixed, expression devoid of anything human. They were trapped between a brother who wanted control and a soldier who wanted silence. Benjamin raised a hand casually. Don't bother running. The walkway won't hold your weight much longer. Micah didn't move. His soaked jacket clung to him, his breath clouding in the cold air. What is stage 3? He asked again. Benjamin smiled as if explaining something to a child. Stage 3 is perception control. You're not important enough to kill outright, not unless I have to. But your credibility? He tapped his chest. That's replaceable. Arden's brow furrowed. Replace him? With who? Benjamin shrugged. Whoever we need him to be. A man drowning in debt. A man attempting blackmail. A man stealing your research. A man spiraling. A man dangerous to his own daughter. Arden's breath caught. You're framing him. We're reshaping him, Benjamin corrected, into someone the world will dismiss. Micah's chest tightened with fury. You don't need to replace me. You just need me to disappear. Benjamin didn't deny it. That's why Sophie... Micah stopped mid-sentence, voice cracking. What did you do to her? Benjamin sighed. I didn't do anything, but someone else might have, depending on your decision here. Micah stepped forward, fists trembling. If you touch my daughter... Benjamin lifted a hand. We already touched your life, Micah. Your past. Your future. We own the narrative. The moment Sophie started digging, she became leverage. Arden's voice rose, trembling but fierce. Sophie escaped you. Benjamin's file flickered. For the moment,
But she's a scared child. She'll make mistakes. Micah's pulse pounded in his ears. He needed a plan. Fast. The enforcer stepped onto the walkway, metal groaning beneath him. One more step and the entire platform would give way. Arden whispered, "Micah, if the walkway collapses—" "I know," he whispered. Benjamin watched calmly. "Stage 3 begins now. I'll give you one last chance, brother. Drop the case, make Arden disappear for good, destroy every drive, every backup. Walk away. Save Sophie." Micah took a slow breath. And then his phone vibrated. He froze. Benjamin noticed, "Who's messaging you at a time like this?" Micah didn't answer, but he flicked his eyes at the screen just long enough to see Sophie. "Dad, I found the person in the bunker. It's not who you think. It's Judge Lowell. She's on our side." Micah's heart jolted. Judge Lowell? The same judge whose credentials were used to send the warning? Arden saw the shift in his expression. "Micah, what is it?" Micah swallowed, voice barely audible. "We have help." Benjamin frowned. "What?" Micah pocketed the phone slowly and smiled. Not the smile of a man defeated, but of a man who finally sees the cracks in the enemy's armor. "Benjamin," he said softly, "you miscalculated." Benjamin's jaw tightened. "What are you talking about?" "You think you control the narrative." Micah stepped closer. "But you left digital footprints all over the courthouse servers, the same servers my daughter traces daily. And now Judge Lowell knows." Benjamin's brow twitched just slightly. A crack. Arden stepped in, voice clear and steady. "She's been watching you. All of you. That's why she warned Micah. That's why your witness was pulled." Micah nodded. "And that's why she's with Sophie right now." Benjamin's expression darkened. "You're bluffing." "You sure about that?" Micah asked. Benjamin pulled out his phone, thumbs flying. No response. No connection. Judge Lowell had already cut him out. For the first time, Benjamin's composure faltered. The enforcer took another step forward. Metal screamed beneath him. Micah reacted instantly. "Arden, jump!" She leapt sideways just as the walkway gave way. Micah grabbed her mid-fall as the rusty platform crashed into the water, dragging the enforcer with it. A roar of water swallowed him. Benjamin shouted, "No!" Micah and Arden hit the far platform, rolling across the cold metal. Benjamin lunged toward them, but Micah kicked a loose pipe, sending it skittering across the floor. It struck Benjamin's shin with brutal force. Benjamin stumbled, just long enough. Micah grabbed a thick cable dangling from the filtration machinery. "Arden, help me!" Together, they whipped the cable around a rusted valve, turning it as hard as they could. The chamber trembled. Benjamin's eyes widened. "Micah, don't!" But Micah did. The emergency flood valves opened. A roar of water blasted downward, the pressure dragging everything in the pool toward the lower drainage system. The enforcer vanished beneath the surge. The walkway buckled. Benjamin grabbed the railing, barely holding his footing. "Micah, stop! You'll drown us all!" Micah stared at him with cold fury. "You threatened my daughter!" Benjamin's face twisted. "This isn't over." Micah met his gaze. "Yes, it is." The current slammed Benjamin backward, ripping his grip free. He plunged into the churning water, swept toward the drainage shaft. Micah grabbed Arden's arm. "Come on!" They scrambled up the stairs toward the emergency maintenance hatch. Water surged behind them, climbing the walls. Micah shoved the hatch open. Cold daylight hit them like a blessing. They climbed out into a narrow alley behind an old maintenance building. Arden collapsed against the wall, gasping, "Micah, did we survive?" He leaned over her, catching his breath. "Yeah, we did." He pulled out his phone. A new message from Sophie waited. "Dad, I'm safe. Judge Lowell is with me. She says she's been trying to expose this network for months. She wants to help us end this." Micah closed his eyes in relief. Arden touched his arm. "We're not done yet, are we?" Micah shook his head, breathing hard. "No, we're just getting started." He texted Sophie. "Stay with the judge. We're coming, and we're taking this whole network down." Benjamin survives the flood, and the shadowy organization behind him realizes they underestimated Micah. As Micah, Arden, Sophie, and Judge Lowell unite, the real mastermind prepares the next move, and Stage 4 begins.